Hello, Werewolf Army, this is Jaden's videos, and today I am here with a very, very special video because this is the first haunt build video for Nightmare House 2020, The Experiments. Today is just the blueprints because obviously, as tradition, before I get into any actual builds or anything, I have to get the blueprints done, so you guys know what to expect. So, first I want to do a little explaining. Obviously, this year the haunt is a laboratory theme, but it's not only a laboratory. If you can see the blueprints here, and I'll zoom in on certain parts when I talk about them so you can see them better, but there's a laboratory down in the bottom right. That is the main laboratory, but really the haunt as a whole is the experimental grounds that surround the laboratory and the lab itself. The lab itself is the main thing, but also the experimental grounds are involved. So there's also a containment unit, a wasteland, a crash site, and gardens, and I'll get into all of that when I talk about those specific areas. But it is a lab theme, but it's really like a lab slash sci-fi theme, I'd consider it, because it's got all of the experimental grounds on the lab property as well. Now, the backstory of this year's haunt is that Dr. Albert Crane, and this will be expanded on if you want to know more about it, who has been a mad scientist since the 1800s and has kept himself alive with a special potion, finally decided to open up this lab that he's been working on for hundreds of years to the public and to showcase his experiments. And this all goes into Dr. Voodoo's whole master plan of ending the town of Nightmare. Because if it was not clear already from last year what Jackson talked about in the haunt video, Nightmare House is coming to an end. It is sad, I know. Next year is the last year of Nightmare House, actually. So this is almost the end. The story's wrapping up here. Last year truly started the end of the story with the Rector farm, and then that was burned to the ground after Halloween night and all of that. But it's coming to a close. But that does not mean I'm done with haunting. That is right. After Nightmare House is over, I plan to start a new haunt. I'm not really going to get into the name I have planned for that yet or anything, because I want to keep that a surprise, but this new haunt is not going to only revolve around the town of Nightmare. This new haunt will be a different story each year, instead of how Nightmare House is a different story, but it has an overarching story that ties it all together. This will be a different story each year, taking place in a different time period each year, and a different part of the world, so it definitely gives more possibility of what I can do instead of this one town that is supposed to be the ruins of a town from the 1800s, but you're going through the haunted present day in this one location. Instead, it could be wherever I want it to be, whatever time period I want it to be, and the possibilities are endless. So next year is Nightmare House's 10th anniversary, and Nightmare House will come to a close, but don't worry, because I'm starting a new haunt after that. But Nightmare House is still up and running, so I'm excited for this year. This is Nightmare House 2020, The Experiments, obviously. I've always loved laboratory and sci-fi themes. I just don't talk about them much because I really haven't had the opportunity to, because we don't get very many lab and sci-fi type props. I feel like we definitely should get more. But if you've noticed, almost every time we get a prop like that, I take the chance to purchase it. Except for Eddie, but I do plan on getting him for this year's haunt, so that's just a disclaimer, because a lot of people have been asking me if I'm planning on getting Eddie. So I really like lab and sci-fi themes, so I'm definitely doing one this year finally, and I'm super excited about it. Obviously, last year was the first year of the haunt that I did one whole theme. Before that, it was one main theme, but a bunch of small themes in it, and before that, it was just a bunch of random themes. Last year was the first year of the haunt that I did one whole theme, where it was all one cohesive theme and everything from start to finish. And it was a farm theme, obviously. From now on, that is exactly what I'm going to do, one whole theme from start to finish, because I feel that the best haunts are like that, because it's easier to tell your story, it just looks better, and that's how most haunts are. And so I'm going to stick with that from now on. So the theme this year is laboratory. So without further ado, how about I get right into this so you guys can see what I have planned for Nightmare House 2020, The Experiment. As you can tell, I did something a little bit different this year by writing the blueprints out on paper, because I feel like the way that I've been doing it, it's always been so difficult to get the exact measurements of how I want things to look, right? And so I felt like paper was easier, but that's why I'm using paper. I know it's harder to see, but I'll try to explain it the best I can. So this first room is the laboratory. Now this is where the barn was last year, and so it is in my garage, and this is definitely the first room. So first off, we're going to have a big facade of a laboratory on the outside with some like lightning bolts on the top and stuff. And then you walk in, and instead of being one big open space like it was last year, because that was a barn, it's going to be cut. The haunt uses up a much smaller space this year because it's a lab, and so I want it to be smaller and more claustrophobic, whereas last year it was a farm, so I wanted it to be big and wide, like a wide farmland. It uses less space for sure, like way less of the yard, but I think it's going to be the same length of a walkthrough, because instead I've just added more pathways to the inside sections. So we have the laboratory here. First you walk in and there's the corridor. Now over to the right you can see actor's spot. That's just a big open space that I can have an actor if I want them there. I don't know if I do want them there yet or not. But you've got this corridor here that cuts right down the middle. My walls this year, I'm not using tarp anymore, because I mostly used tarp in the past because when doing outside scenes, tarp is what you have to do because there's not going to be walls outside. Whereas this year, the haunt is primarily inside. And so I'm going to be making walls out of foam and cardboard. I'm going to get the foam boards, and I'm going to carve into them to make them look like stone, and then paint those to make this look like actual laboratory walls. So you've got that corridor, and then you're going to have some flame lights in there, because this laboratory is not a sci-fi laboratory. This laboratory is supposed to have been built in the 1800s, so it's steampunk. It's a steampunk laboratory. It's steam powered, and so I think that's really cool. I'm really excited about that, because those are honestly my favorite types of laboratories, because if you know me, I love 1800s and old stuff. So this is a steampunk lab. Guest will then turn left, and there will be the victim room, where he keeps his victims that he's getting ready to experiment on. So you'll have a victim in a cage over there, and then chin-up zombies could be in there, because if you don't follow me on Instagram, which you definitely should, www.instagram.com/@JadensVideos or something like that. I don't know their exact way of saying that, but as you can see, chin-up zombie and such are going to be right there. So after turning out of the victim room, they'll turn into another corridor, which is exactly the same as the other one. Now, at the end here, you have a work table that's going to have like test tubes and jarred specimens and stuff. If you notice in last year's haunt, one of the things that really contributed to it being my best haunt and just a really great haunt in general was the overall theme, of course, but also just the attention to detail. I got much better lighting. I got floodlights. I got fog sense, so it actually smelled like a farm. I worked really hard on the audio and soundtrack and everything, which really turned out great. And then I added so many little details, like the fact that the whole barn was covered in hay. There were cobwebs everywhere made with the webcaster gun. There was lanterns, there was bones, there were some real bones in the haunt as well. And there were just hay bales everywhere, and then I got a bunch of corn stalks, and then there was the big farmhouse that we built, and the sawmill had just wood everywhere, and the water wheel. There was just so much detail to last year's haunt, and I think small details really matter in a haunt. They really help make a haunt so much better, because if you look at a haunt, what professional haunt does not have small details? Obviously, I don't run a professional haunt, but if you want your haunt to be good, I think small details are very important. And so, I really am going to stress a lot on making this work table look great with small details and stuff. And that is why a lot of the things that are going to be on that work table are going to be actual, real, live organs, from animals and such, because I already have some of those as it is because I find them fascinating and cool. So I'm going to definitely get a few more and just have that be like real stuff, because it just adds to the creepiness, it adds to it so much. So then they're going to turn left, and they're in the big experimentation room. First, they're going to come face to face with Razortail. Now, if you don't know who Razortail is, first off, he's in my intro and outro now, and he's my profile picture because he is a huge mascot of this year's haunt. I will get more into his backstory eventually. Some of you already know it, mainly Avery, because Avery actually helped me design the character of Razortail, so thank you so much, Avery. I still remember that. It was years ago that we did that, but it still brings back memories of when we designed it together. But he is a big mascot of this year's haunt. To put it in the simplest way possible, he's one of the creations, one of the most important creations of the mad scientist. So that you have Razortail. So the big Razortail prop I made, which is going to be my next haunt build video actually. And if you haven't seen it, go check out my Instagram and you'll see it. But he's going to be there. Then I'm going to have a big slab with reanimated corpse in front of it. And next to that's going to be control panel with a bunch of buttons and stuff. Fright Props has a really cool monster control panel that I want to get for that. And then the last room in the lab is the power room. Like I mentioned, this is a steampunk lab, so there's going to be the gears turning. I hope to get reindeer motors for those to make them actually turn. There's going to be steam coming out. It's going to be very steampunk-like. And then if you see that there, that says K1LL666, that is a steampunk robot. That's another one of the experiments. He's going to be like in the corner there just to creep people out. I've already made the audio for the whole haunt, and the audio for this scene is just absolutely fantastic, and I cannot wait to share it with you guys. So that is the most important part of the haunt this year, the laboratory. Will leave the laboratory out the side door of the garage like they did with the barn last year, and this is where the Field of Screams was last year. This is the Wasteland. Now this is getting into the experimental grounds themselves, and it also kind of changes pace here with the whole aesthetic of the haunt. The first half of the haunt is the steampunk vibe, of course, but as I mentioned, the mad scientist has been alive for hundreds of years, and so as time went on, his lab expanded and his grounds expanded, and he definitely kept up with the newer technology. So the whole rest of the laboratory and the experimental grounds are from the 1950s, whereas the first half is from the 1800s. So it's all the same area. He just expanded onto it with better technology over time. So it all still connects together, it all still will work fluently together and look good, but that's the story there. And I'll try to explain that in the haunt to make it make more sense with scenery and stuff. But this is the Wasteland because bringing the dead back to life with toxic chemicals is another one of his experiments. So this is a long hallway. You have an actor right there. There's 2 toxic zombies there, so I'm going to build those. Those are going to be props I build. And those circles there are going to be toxic waste barrels. And right at the end there is Grave Grabbing Corpse, which I'm going to use as a static. Of course, Spirit has not released their 2020 lineup yet, so who knows what they're going to have. There could be so many more props that I add to the haunt, depending on what new props come out this year. So these blueprints are most likely going to change, because it really just depends on what new 2020 props we get, and if there's props that fit my theme that I can use. So we'll have to find out there. But right now, that's just a disclaimer. These are the props that I'm using right now that I know I'm going to use. So there you have that. That's going to be most likely lit by a green fire and ice light. I'm pretty excited for it. Now the layout of this next scene is a little weird, and it's going to be a little hard to explain, but bear with me. This is the alien crash site section. So this is just a crash site that he has kind of roped off for experimental purposes in his experimental grounds. Now the last thing you saw was the Wasteland, and that's like kind of far away from this. There's a big empty space leading up to this, just so guests can just stay fixated on the giant UFO that's going to be there. So there's not really anything between here and the Wasteland. But where this is the walking up to this is where the farmhouse was last year, and where this is where the Rector Farm section was last year. So with Jackstraw, Nightmare Harvester, Rusty, all of that. If you can see there, the circle at the top, right above the UFO, that's the tree. So hopefully that can give you a better idea of this. And then you have a UFO there. Now, Haunt Former actually is letting me borrow his Spirit 2017 UFO from Area 31 to use for that, but that's not really too big, so I think I'm going to use that as a base and then build around it and make the UFO bigger. That really depends on timing. And then right there is Alien Death, the Distortions Unlimited prop. Now, I do not own that prop, I will say that, but that is one that I'm absolutely getting this year, no matter what, because one, it's not very expensive, and two, I need that prop to make this scene work, because I want the alien lying dead by the UFO crash, so that is one that I need. And now we are into the part of the haunt that is pretty much very similar to the laboratory at the beginning, but instead of the 1800s vibe, now it has the 1950s vibe, because this is the newer type of laboratory that is called the Containment Unit. So this is where, as you can see, this is totally skipped the whole area where Simon's Slaughterhouse, Dead Oak's Cabin, and the Forest of Lost Souls was last year, and gone straight to where the sawmill was, under the patio area, because I don't need all that extra space this year. So that this is the Containment Unit. And so first you have the cold room right when guests walk in. All those circles are going to be like frozen bodies and frozen limbs and everything just hanging from the ceiling. And then right over there in the corner is Cryo Chamber Corpse. So this room I actually plan to have a fan in there to make it, or something to make it feel cold, and obviously blue lights and stuff. The next room is the insect room, where there's going to be mutant insects and stuff. I'm going to make a big giant 6-foot tall cockroach. There's going to be an insect humanoid man in there. Jumping Bug, because I actually purchased him. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen that from that fish guy. So Jumping Bug, I purchased him just for this year's haunt because he fits a lab theme so well. And UV Jumping Spider. The next room is going to be the alien containment room. So there's going to be this thing called Ceiling Alien, which is going to be a prop that I make of an alien kind of clinging onto the ceiling. There's going to be a bunch of jars and stuff on tables there. Toe Tag Corpse and Area 31 capsule are going to be in there as well. Next, you have the monster or creature containment room. So these are going to have like containment pods, which are going to be pretty interesting. I don't know how I'm going to make them yet, but I'll figure that out. One of them is going to have a lab creature that I make in them, and the other one's going to have Boogeyman, because I feel like Boogeyman definitely looks like a weird scientist creation, because he's got a very weird looking face that he's not really an exact monster, so he could really just be a weird lab creation. The walls in this area are going to be like silver and look rusted and stuff, and those are going to be wooden walls, most likely, maybe foam, it depends. The next room is the electrical room, and it's a long hallway where you have wires and everything hanging from the ceiling, and at the very end there, Experimental Eddie. I do not own Eddie yet, but like I mentioned, he's definitely one that I plan to get for this year. And the next room, which is the last room in the containment unit, is the experimentation room. So on one of the tables there's just going to be a bunch of jars and specimens and stuff, as well as Snail Mail, which is a prop that's new for 2020 by Fright Props, which is like a giant snail made out of conjoined human parts, and that's like a really screwed up thing a mad scientist seems like they would make, and so I'm definitely using that. And then there's two tables there. One is going to have Autopsy Alien on it by Distortions, which is another prop I don't own but I'm going to get, and the other is going to have Levitator Girl. So like those two are being experimented on. I'm not sure if I'm going to use Levitator Girl as a static or if I'm going to have her levitating or not. It really depends, because in the corner there you'll have Convulsing Nurse, like she's being experimented on, and so I don't want too many animatronics on in that room at once, because usually I think one room should have one animatronic focal point. Or it really depends on the size of the room, but this room is small, and so I feel like it should have one animatronic focal point. Anyways, I'm really excited for this section, and I think it should be really cool. Now, last but certainly not least, we have the gardens. Now, I know you're wondering what a garden has to do with a laboratory or experimental grounds or sci-fi theme. Now, let me explain. This is a part of the grounds that was originally a garden, but when it was turned into the grounds for experimentations, when the mad scientist took over these grounds, he took the chemicals that he had and fused them with the plants in the garden. And so this garden is another area where he's doing experiments on the plants and making them into giant man-eating plants. So yes, it still fits the lab theme. So first off, you're going to have right there cemetery angels there. I don't know if I'm going to keep him there though, just because, well, obviously if I used him, I'd use him as a static with his head down because he just looks like an angel, a statue that you'd see in a garden. But I also feel like he might take away from the lab aesthetic of the haunt. So let me know in the comments below if I should use him or not. Those weird shapes that you see are bushes that are already there, which I think are great, and there's going to be an actor hiding in one of them, as you can see, actor spot. And then, this is where the pumpkin patch was last year, this long hallway leading out of the haunt. There's going to be man-eating plants and corpses on either side. I don't really know my exact plans for this section yet, because this really feels like something that maybe we could get some props for this year, man-eating plant props. It's so highly unlikely, but maybe it's possible. But these man-eating plants I have here now are custom props, and then the biggest man-eating plant is going to be at the very end of the exit of the haunt, where Towering Jack-O-Man was last year. So I think this is a really cool area. I just really want to know your guys' opinions in the comments below if Cemetery Angel will take away from the lab and sci-fi aesthetic or not, or if you think he'll work fine and he'll definitely help tell the story of that scene a little bit better. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Those were the blueprints for Nightmare House 2020, The Experiments. It was the first haunt build video for this year's haunt. I'm super excited about it. Last year's haunt, I'm still super proud of, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. Because I did one theme, I built giant structures, I paid attention to detail, audio, lighting, fog, everything. The haunt was just perfect last year, and since I'm sticking with that same one theme this year, and doing all the detail and stuff and everything, and I'm obviously going to improve, because the haunt just improves each year, because I learn new ways to do things. Just everyone gets better at what they do over time as they continue to do it. And so I loved last year's haunt, and I really think that this year is going to be something even better than last year. I'm really excited for this year. Like I've said, I love lab and sci-fi themes, so I'm so happy to finally be doing one. I think it's very complicated because it's not only the lab, but the lab and all the grounds surrounding it where experiments are taking place. But once you get that story down, it definitely makes a lot of sense, and all of it will blend together perfectly, and it will all make sense in the end. So I'm really excited for you guys to follow me along this year in building the haunt. Actual build videos will start, like actually building the haunt will start in September, of course, but I am working on props as we speak that are, and I've already finished one, that are in progress right now. So build videos will definitely be going on. The Halloween season is fast approaching, guys. Super fast. Halloween is only a few months away. It's actually only 5 months away now, which is insane. Well, really 4.5. And stores like At Home and stuff are already getting their Halloween. So it's super exciting, guys. And yeah, I have so many plans for this year's haunt that builds will definitely be coming our way soon, and then the haunt itself will actually start being set up in September. But until September, you're still going to see many builds. I'm going to be making the walls before that, so when it comes time to set up the haunts, all I have to do is place the walls into their places. I'm going to be making a lot of props. There's just going to be so much. There's so much to be done, but it's so exciting, and I just cannot wait for Halloween 2020. And I'm so excited that the Halloween season is almost here again. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really hope you guys are excited for Nightmare House 2020 The Experiments. I know I am. The backstory and everything will be expanded on over time, so it makes more sense to you. The characters like Razortail, I thank you so much for all the support with the character Razortail. So many of you guys on Instagram are loving the character, and I'm getting art drawn of him. Usually it was only Avery before, because she was the only one who really knew much about him, but now other people are drawing art of him. There's been so much support for that character in general that it really gives me more encouragement for this year's haunt. So I thank you guys so much for the support, and I definitely do hope to let you guys know a little bit more about Razortail soon, because I know that he is definitely a favorite of everyone's, and he's really going to contribute to the haunt. And so I really hope you guys enjoyed for the millionth time. Thank you so much for watching. let me know if you have any ideas in the comments below that I didn't really think of that you can get to. So excited, so many videos coming your way, and I can't wait to show you guys more stuff for Nightmare House 2020 The Experiments, and then eventually the haunt itself on Halloween night. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Keep howling at the moon, my werewolves.